women's status has evolved, and
but I think that's incorrect though, because again, women's status was above most men. So again, we always look at like modern day women have this ideology that like we were oppressed throughout history, and it's just not true.
But I still think that doesn't dispute the fact that enough has happened over the years, like disruptive things have happened that have given light to the fact that women have way more choice, perceived or like aware of choices more now than what they was, which is obviously bring light.
But technology has advanced.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's like we were oppressed ever. Like technology has just advanced.
But I think then you've got to ask yourself, like, what is it then to be oppressed, or what does it even mean to be oppressed? Like for women, that lack of choice was oppression, or the lack of knowing of that choice was oppression.
What lack of choice?
In terms of compared to what we have now, in terms of the fact that we have the pill and we're able to go and explore, we're able to have options with men and dating and get, stigmatized by men.
I think it was just back then, women knew the consequences of having sex with someone that's not your husband. Do you understand? Like you can get pregnant, and if that person is not your husband, your family will look down on you. And that was the morals back then, like in these Western societies. Like that's why women wasn't making those kind of choices. But when obviously the pill and the contraceptions and all of that came in, that kind of consequence went away. Do you understand? It kind of went away. And when there's no consequence for anything, no matter what it is, it can be anything. When there's no consequence, people are gonna go all out. Do you understand? People are gonna take it to the most extremes when there's no consequences.
Madam Walker was the first female millionaire in the U.S. in the 1800s.
Wow, how did she become a millionaire? What did she do?
An entrepreneur, philanthropist, and social activist. She's the recorded first self-made millionaire in America.
Madam C.J. Walker, real one.
Yeah.
She sounds like a boss lady who broke all the rules.
But I don't think she was breaking rules. Again, it's just like women had choices, and most women preferred to raise kids.
But what's her story, and how did they perceive her in that era?
So she, from what I know, she started off, she literally was washing clothes. One lady in the town was a business lady. She asked her for how she did the hair products and made hair products. The lady wouldn't really help her, so Madam C.J. Walker aspired to be like that lady. So what she did is she went back home and started trying out new products, testing things, and then went out into the town trying to sell her product. She started showing people the miracle growth and how it worked. From there, people just started jumping on the bandwagon, and then it got to the point where she essentially just built her wealth. She went through a lot of struggles through it, and then became a self-made millionaire. But she had choice. It wasn't, most women chose not to do it. It was just a case of choice. It wasn't yes, there were roles, but more so it wasn't, you cannot set up a business. You cannot set up your own thing. Yeah. To my knowledge.
And this, I think, is that awareness. Obviously that exception of a woman, she was aware of her choices. And I think so many, not just women, but people go through life not being aware of their choices, or they're aware of their choices, but they don't know how to.
No, I disagree. I just think at that time, they were just very aware that they were self-actualized from different things. One of the biggest aspects of self-actualization is to raise a family as a woman. Whereas a man, it was to go out there, get bread, separate yourself from other men. So I think they were always aware of it, but they were driven by different things. Now you see now in the modern society, the high achieving woman who sacrifices her family for a career, at best she has one child. She might not even have a fully functioning relationship. You find it very weird or very, very peculiar for a woman who makes, and let's forget about the anomalies such as the Kim K's where you can just make money at a touch of the button. Let's talk about the nitty gritty corporate world. You find it very rare to see a high achieving woman that has a lot of time for her family and her predominant goal is to raise a family. It's just not possible.
Well, and in general, achievement is the exception. Most people were poor throughout all of human history. So any sort of achievement by anyone, like rich is the exception. It's not the rule. And so the fact that like even few women achieved it, like few men achieved it too. And so I don't know how we could say like that we were held back in any way.
Yeah, and I think you're right. There is that element there, and it's I think it's a common theme that runs into our lives even now, like how we, like you said about self-actualization, it's even happening right now. Like, you know, people are going through life and they don't ever actualize like who they really are. They don't ever question these systems. They don't ever question, you know,
what systems?
When I talk about systems, I'm talking about like these social ideas, like that women feel oppressed and are oppressed, right? It's like, you know, it's that belief in itself that they are like, I'm oppressed and I'm in this situation, that closes their minds off to these choices. I think you do get those exceptional people that say, well, hold on a minute, like I don't want to be like this. I don't want to be like everyone else, and I don't want to follow those rules. And I'm gonna
follow what rules?
The social norms
of like in 2022. What's that look like?
I would say, like, have a family, being the mother, like be in the house, like being staying at home mom, and then like you said, like
you think that's the norms in 2022?
I'd say that's being challenged.
Oh, you're saying that's
now,
being challenged.
But I'm saying if we're talking about the general idea of what
normal is,
what we generalize as and what we measure ourselves against, then I would say
I would disagree. I don't think housewife is typical. I don't know many housewives in general. I don't think the majority of women like really get to do that.
in the West, anyway.
And in the West, and like 50, if that was true, then 50% of women hitting 30 wouldn't be single and childless. Because they would have had kids by now.
Most women fight back against the idea. They have this dangerous idea of, I don't want to depend on a man for anything. So the majority of women would actually fight back against the idea of being a housewife, which to me doesn't really make sense when 80% of divorces are initiated by women. And as women are naturally hypergamous, they get most of the wealth. So what is this fear of a man controlling the wealth when we don't live in Saudi Arabia where there's no divorce laws? The divorce laws are you take half of the assets. So this whole fear of the man financially controlling everything, it's a farce.
Yeah.
Well, this is what I was gonna. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, do you think that's linked to if the guy's making a lot of money, the woman might feel like she doesn't have a say in life? Do you think that's what it's linked to?
I think it's linked to the baby mother culture in the US and the UK, where a lot of scorned women have had kids out of wedlock. And the man's fucked off, and now they're scorned from it, and they're teaching that to their daughters. When really, if you had rationed your pumps and waited to get a ring on it before getting fucked raw in the back of an apartment, you wouldn't have this problem.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is like in 2022, women are bailed out of every single bad decision that we make. Like every single one, we are bailed out. So, for example, like they used to require women to be virgins to get a ring. We make the decision to sleep around, and we still get rings. Right? That's one bad decision. Or let's say we get pregnant. You can get bailed out of that bad decision because you get an abortion. Or you can keep it and you can still give it up for adoption. Or you can keep it and you can still get remarried typically. Where like historically you would have been done for. Even if you weren't a virgin, like you would be done for. And so you have those like being bailed out of those bad decisions. On top of that, women own 2/3 of the consumer debt. So and all of the government programs are typically women on them and they're men paying for them. So it's men always bailing out women for poor decisions.
That's interesting. Like, I was actually talking to my dad about this. Well, he kind of brought it up because he watched the podcast. And, you know, one thing that he kind of mentioned was actually as women, we probably have a lot more, like we have, because we're emotional as beings, right? It's like the longer term impact of these things that can happen, and the consequences of it can have a lot more of a long-term impact on women than it can men, because obviously women are more emotional.
What do you mean a long-term impact? As
in kind of live life with, stress, anxiety, depression, or, feeling, carrying that toxic behaviors in them, or
I just don't. Can I have a specific example of how it would affect men and women differently?
Okay, so let's say, for example, a woman has a casual relationship and then maybe falls pregnant and then decides to, maybe they develop an emotional attachment with the person, but then the man doesn't, for example, and then she becomes pregnant, and then she has to choose between whether she wants to, have a baby or not, right? So that would be an example. So, but the long term, potentially, because women are wired more emotionally, the longer term impact of making that decision and actually going through the consequences of that.
The consequences is more on the woman.
Not consequences more on women, but I'm just saying, like, as in the action and reaction, like as in the as a result of the act which happened.
So the act is, you're talking about sex, like casual sex.
Yeah, okay. Someone's having casual sex, they fall in love, and then the woman has a more longer term emotional impact as a result. Yeah. So let's say then the father decides that they don't want to be a part of that child's life. The mother chooses, I'm going to have this child. Then she may need that additional, as you like to call it, bailout, then let's say opposed to men, because that woman's emotional needs are different.
Well, but the thing is, like, women are 100% in control of birth. Men have no power and no say, and they're on the hook for child support for 18 years if they do. If she does have the kid.
Yeah.
So how, you don't think it's emotionally impacting someone when they're taking up to, in the US, you can get up to 50% of a man's income. Can you imagine getting $2,000 a month, spending $1,000 on your baby mama? You don't think that's...
I think that can have an impact on...
It's like soul crushing.
It can be. And I'll be honest, it's like, I dated someone who had two children, and I know that, he went through a really hard time just trying to be a part of his children's lives, and that kind of, that does exist. But, and obviously he was distressed because of it. But I would say that it didn't really emotionally, I feel like the emotional impact would have been a lot more on the mother than on the man, because we're instinctually more emotional.
So then wouldn't that if a girl's more emotional, wouldn't she not want to kill the kid?
Where did killing the kid come into it?
Because we were talking about that's why they would need the extra bailout, right? That's what you're saying.
Oh, you're referring to killing the kid as like abortion, killing the kid.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm thinking like you're saying killing the kid. So like, just get mad one day and
Casey Anthony.
That is down to whether you believe abortion is killing a child or not. And that is like subject to a whole other debate.
Well, yeah, I know, but the whole point is like that, like women have rights in that situation and men don't. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess, but then it's the woman's body. It's the woman's body,
right? But
it's happening to the woman.
Right. The whole point is it's his wallet, right? Okay, yeah. So in this case, like women are 100% in control of birth. They're not 100% in control of who gets pregnant, but they're much more in control than men are, right?
Yeah.
Because we have 10 to 15 forms of birth control that we can use. They have one.
Yeah. But then if you're thinking like financially as well, like men don't have to pay if they don't.
They can go to jail. Yeah, even here.
Exactly. Yeah. They'll have there's a consequence to that, but they still have that choice. Like they don't have to pay child protection.
But then that's what you're saying. There's a consequence in it, and that's what I was saying earlier. You know, women go
no consequence.
Yeah, there's no consequence for women. Do you understand? There's no as you said. As you said, you can get an abortion if you want. You know, you can decide. You know, to like adopt the kid, give it up for adoption. There's so many. There's so many pills and contraceptions that you can take to avoid, these consequences, innit? Do you understand? Once the sperm leaves the man's body, like, you know, his life is basically in your hand.
And people like to use this example of consent to sex is consent to having a child. But imagine if a man were to do the example of, this woman right now, at the start, she consented to having sex with me, but I just carried on even though she didn't want to. People be like, this guy needs to get put in prison and you'll get 4 years. So the whole notion of consent to sex, but the babies come. When has he consented to that?
I think you consent to a child as soon as you have sex. But it's like this like, you know, and I think we have, like, where contraception has given us this freedom.
So you're saying as soon as you have sex, you consent to a child. So that means you consent to ejaculation.
If you're
so if I start sex with you now, you want me to stop because you've consented to ejaculation. There's nothing you can do to stop me because you've consented. Because that's the same logic.
Yeah, I think, you know, at the end of the day, if two people are having unprotected sex, then the risk is that you're
not getting what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is, you're saying is once you consent to sex, you consent to ejaculation into the other person. Yeah, we've agreed on that because that's what causes for a baby to be made. Yeah.
Yeah, you risk that. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we've consented to that, if you now have sex with a man and you want to stop, he can now say to you, babes, you've consented to ejaculation, so you're going to wait here. And you're going to hold every single inch until I finish because that's what you consented to. Is that what you're advocating for?
Hold every single inch of what?
Of this wood.
Of this wood. Because you consented to the ejaculation and you run that risk. So now he doesn't want to stop. It's the same thing, no?
Now he doesn't want to stop.
Yeah, he doesn't want to stop. And you want to stop and he doesn't want to stop. Because you've consented to the risk of ejaculation, he should be able to finish. Based on that logic. I'm not advocating for this. I'm saying based on that logic.
I can't lie. I feel like there's some moral high ground right there because.
But based on that logic,
that's
that logic.
Yeah, but it's the same logic.
Yeah,
because he's saying,
I'm not advocating for that, by the way.
Yeah, because you might because by this logic, then, like, it's the same thing with pregnancy. Like, he consented to have sex, he didn't consent to pregnancy.
But then how? I don't understand. I don't.
But
get
that's why we've got contraception. That's why we got contraception, isn't it?
What I'm saying is that at that time,
should it be grape if a girl says she's on birth control and she's not?
Oh,
should that be grape?
Well, grape
because he consented to, or let's say an IUD. Girl says she has an IUD.
Yeah,
surely he consented to sex with the IUD. Let's say she doesn't have one. Should that be grape?
Yeah, surely that's equivalent to stealthing.
Because there's some laws in the U.S. that they're saying if a guy takes off the condom, that's grape.
Yeah, we call that stealthing here.
I don't know. Yeah, okay, British term.
Yeah,
I think if two people are choosing to have unprotected sex,
I also
you
think
choose
it depends
to potentially have that consequence.
What?
It also depends if you're having casual sex or if you're if you're dating, or if you're in a relationship. I think with casual sex, you both need to know what you're dealing with, and if it's just having casual, then you both should be using something. I also think as well that you need to communicate. If you're dating someone, you're saying, right, I don't want to have kids right now. I just want to.
Well, I'm saying if she lies. So if she said, because there's a lot of girls that want to trap guys.
Yeah.
Right. If he's
big enough.
Yeah. So if a girl lies to him and he gives consent for sex with an IUD and she doesn't have one, should that be grape? And the same thing with a condom. If she consents to sex with a condom and then he takes it off, is that grape?
I think they both are. I think taking it off when you're in the middle of it can only be seen as grape. But equivocally, if a woman lies, the only problem is obviously in the eyes of the law, how do you prove that she lied?
Yeah,
but I think it should be.
I think grape. When you look at grape is an unconsent of that act, right? And that, like, when you're taking if a woman's gonna say to a man, "Oh yeah, I'm on birth control," but she's not, and then she ends up having his baby. Like, that's very that's manipulative by the woman.
That's a great baby.
That's just a woman being like a bad person.
No, that's a great baby. It's a great baby.
Right.
I wouldn't say
you stole his semen.
You stole his semen.
So would you say the same thing then for a woman if a guy takes off the condom? Is it the same?
Well, if the woman
consents to sex with a condom, man's not feeling it, he takes it off. Is that grape?
I don't think it's great because she's consented to the act of sex.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, it's consistent.
That's fair. Yeah.
What about you guys? So you would say that would be great for both, or we could say essay instead if you want to make it a lesser.
That's one thing I would say. I do think it's mad that for taking it off, and obviously I'm not a lawyer, you can get the same as jumping a woman in the street and dragging into
Is that here?
Yeah, you get the same. You get 4 years either way.
Shut up. If he takes off a condom?
Yeah, you get 4 years.
Shut up.
So it's I find it's mad that you can get 4 years for that, but then you can just pick a random girl and get the same charge. It doesn't make sense.
I heard that they might have introduced that in California, but I did not know that was the law.
No, here, if you do that and they prove it, you're going to prison for 4 years.
But I bet there's no law for the equivalent, which is a woman saying she's on
no,
an IUD, or even stealing a condom.
No, nothing.
Because you guys heard about that, like the NBA issued statement saying that like the players need to flush their condoms because girls were stealing them.
Wow.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was so prevalent. I mean, think about that's the number one way NBA players go broke.
Mm-hmm.
They get the wrong girl pregnant, and that's what I'm saying. It's another thing. Like it's another fail-safe for a woman's bad decisions. Because you picked the wrong guy and now you get paid for it.
And there's women out here that advocate for it.
Yeah, and there's some women that don't like do that, right? Like I'm not saying every single girl like takes part in child support, but like at the end of the day, it's another fail safe for women's bad decisions. And that's why it's almost like we're children because we get bailed out of every bad decision that we make. We sleep around, slut shaming. We get fat phobia. There's no equivalence of these for men. Then if we sleep around and get pregnant, we have abortion as an option. We have adoption as an option. There's bailout for that. We get married and then we get divorced, which is, bad decision. You can get alimony or child support. So it's every bad decision that we make, we're always bailed out.
I think but some of those, but not all of them, but definitely some of those bailouts are also bailouts for both parties involved.
Which ones?
Both, like the man and the woman. Like if for example, abortion, let's say a couple don't want to have a child, then they're both by that woman going through that.
But it's 100% the woman's decision.
Yeah, because me and you can have sex and you get pregnant.
Yeah.
And let's say I want the baby, but you don't want the baby. I have no power whether you get rid of the baby or not. I just have to tell you that I want the baby and hope that you keep the baby. Because I said, but if you in your head said, I do not want this baby, there's nothing that I can actually physically, whatever, there's nothing I can do by law, there's nothing that I can actually do to stop you from getting rid of that baby.
Yeah, that's so true.
Do you understand? So,
yeah. And then even like governments pay out single mothers. They don't pay out single fathers.
But don't you think that's something wrong with the system? Because like I said previously, when I was dating that person who had 2 kids, there were times where he's a good father, and there were times where he would go to court and try and get joint custody of his kids, and it would be so hard.
Yes,
it would be so difficult, almost impossible, and it went on for years. And then you do hear stories of women who go to court and they do get that favor. They do. That's the court system that we currently have.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like that's another way women are bailed out of bad decisions because they can leave, break up the home, and they still get custody.
And a check.
And a check. And women own 2/3 of consumer debt, right? So we get homeless. What are there? Women's shelters. There's not really men's shelters like that. I mean, there's like 1 or 2, but not the same way there's women's shelters.
That's true.
I don't even know what the real time real-time data is for that.
In the UK, if you're a woman and you have a child out of wedlock and you're homeless, you get council house so quick.
Yeah.
If you're a single dad, they'll tell you to get a job, big man, and sort it out, or your kids are going into care.
Yeah.
You're not getting council house like that.
Yeah, I think that's a massive flaw in, again, the system is.
It's not a flaw in the system because the system is made for men to work in order to put into the system and allow women to cash out of the system. So when people talk about flaws, it's not a flaw, it's how the system's meant to work.
And obviously, as Pearl has been saying, like, women are 80% of the consumer base. So they know, the system knows that if men are working and putting into the system, the women are going to take the money out and spend it on these luxuries that women love, bags, clothes, and women are very spontaneous with their spending. Do you understand? So,
and like when we talk about, for example, the welfare state, and we talk about general double standards, this is not us as us as men advocating that the double standards shouldn't exist. Our problem is we accept these double standards. Like, no man who pays on a first date is bothered. Unless you're a broke guy and you're a loser and you probably don't deserve pussy anyway. But most men are not bothered. But our problem is when a man now comes out and says cheating for a man and woman is different, or then women just lose the plot about it, and then it becomes a double standard conversation. And that's why when we talk about this, is just that, okay, women talk about how there's this pay gap, but it's invisible. It's just because men do the harder jobs that get most of the rewards. So it's like women choose to go to the education system. They're not blocked from going to the education system. Most women achieve better than men pretty much through every single aspect of education. More women go to university than men, but who becomes the corporate bankers? Who becomes the lawyers? It's the men, not the women. It's not because there's a window there. It's very simple with, it's risk versus reward. Do the harder job, you get paid more of the money.
Do you think that's because, like, women are expected to, once they have a child, to stay at home, look after the child, and they have to, you know, lead a certain lifestyle in order to support their family?
I disagree with that.
Yeah, I do.
I'm just curious.
I'm just curious. Why do we always say have to instead of get to?
Yeah.
You ever think about that? Because it's a privilege to get to stay home with your kids.
Yeah, definitely.
The majority of women don't get to do that. It's like maybe 20% of women get to be housewives. So unless you're in the top 20% of like hotness, looks, like whatever, you probably don't get to stay home. You probably have to work.
Yeah.
So to me, if there's nothing getting in women's way, like there's nothing stopping them. If they wanted to do it, they do it.
Yeah, I can't dispute. I think like this day and age, you can choose to do that or not.
And also with that, like, you have women essentially. What do they have it? So if a woman gets pregnant, the man can take. It's not
paternity leave.
But he can take paternity leave.
Yeah, it's like 6 weeks if you're at a really good firm, whereas women it's like 6 to 9 months in the UK.
So like they're making caveats to ensure that there's some form of equality. So it doesn't mean that a woman has to take time off completely. So
and going on what you're saying, in a lot of forward-thinking firms now, because of the whole gender-neutral LGBTQ movement, they've now made you get maternity and paternity, but it's shared. So it's not like the man now only gets 6 weeks and the woman only gets 6 months. It's now shared. You get this amount of holiday, and then you get to pick that between whoever.
I think that's really good.
Okay, so we're gonna react to a video. So pull up the one from the dating show ish. You guys may have seen this clip. This went viral a couple weeks ago. So tell me when the mics are muted ish, and I'll show them on here.
Hello.
Oh, hi.
What
Hi.
are you reading?
Yeah, I was actually reading. I ship out in a few days, so I was just reading The Art of Strategy.
Okay.
In the military?
Yeah, so actually I'm a nuclear physicist for the Navy.
No.
So I do that in a few days.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
How old are you?
I am 27. I look a little young. I'm not that young.
Yeah, you look young.
So where do you live?
So I'm actually in the Woodlands, Texas right now. Right down there by Houston. I'm about 30 minutes away from Houston. So I'm a little close.
Oh, nice. Okay, so tell me a little bit about yourself.
Man, where do I start? I like martial arts a lot. I did a bit of pharmacy back when I was a little bit younger, about 2-3 years ago. I got certified at pharmacy around when I was 17. I didn't really do anything with it. I went to university for a while. I was getting like a business degree. So I have a bachelor's in business. And then I did pharmacy for a little while, for about 3 years, and then got bored. So I was like, Let's go see what the military has to offer. Didn't do anything. I did my PICAT about a year ago. Got a 96 on that. It goes up to a 99. Got a 96. They offered me nuclear physics, and I was like, why the fuck not? So I went there, and now I ship out in a few days.
Oh, okay, nice. Well, best of luck as you ship out pineapples.
Yeah. Why?
Because he literally didn't tell me any qualities about himself. He's just like, I made a 96 on this. I did this. And I feel like I did that at first too. But however, I need a man with some personality.
You felt that quick? You know you didn't have personality?
Yes, I'm really good at reading people.
Okay.
Finish.
Well, that's more than women.
Yeah. Okay. So, so.
I think that's an age thing, though. If she had a youth, she wouldn't think.
As many of you know, I was just banned on TikTok, and we are demonetized on a daily basis on this platform. If you want to help, please consider sending a super thanks below. Every donation helps, and it helps make what we do possible.